In this PowerPoint, we'll take a look at user interface and the user experience related to web design. Okay, so the topics that we'll cover is user interface, user experience, usability, the principles of user interface design, and more practically, usability checklist. That has to do with when we create our website. So first of all, let's cover what is user interface. User interface, or UI, is anything that a user may interact with when using a digital product or service. So this can include everything from the screen that you're looking at, on your laptop, or to a touch screen at a kiosk, or on your iPad, the keyboard on your laptop or desktop, and sounds, voice, anything that has to do with how you interact with the digital product or service. Okay, so a little bit about the history of user interfaces. First, in the 1970s, in the very beginning, if you wanted to use a computer, you actually had to use the command line interface. So you had to communicate with the computer only through programming language, which means you had to use lines of code to complete a very simple task. In the 80s, they came up with the first graphical user interface, the GUI. This was developed by computer scientists at Xerox PARC. Users could now interact with their personal computers by using icons, clicking on buttons or menus, or using checkboxes. By 1984, Apple personal computer included a point-and-click mouse. So this was a big step in user interface. So this shift in technology was significant because it meant that anyone, not just people that knew how to code, so now anyone could use a computer with no coding required, and therefore the personal computer revolution got started. This is where it all began. And now let's talk about the role of the user interface designer. The accessibility and the prevalence of personal computers now meant that interfaces need to be designed with the users in mind now, users who are not coders or programmers. So if users can't interact with the computers, then these computers won't sell. So now the role of user interface designers was now born. So the UI designer's role has evolved as systems, preferences, expectations, and accessibility demands increase. Now UI designers work not only on just computer interfaces, but also on phones, augmented reality, and virtual reality, and invisible or screenless interfaces like voice, gesture, and light. Next, let's take a look at what UX is. UX has to do with the user experience design. This is often used interchangeably with terms such as user interface design or usability. Usability and user interface design are important aspects of the user experience design, but they are subsets of it. They're not one and the same thing. User experience design covers more. It covers a vast array of other areas as well. User experience design is a process that design teams use to create products that provide meaningful and relevant experiences to users. So this involves the design of entire processes of acquiring and integrating the product, including aspects of branding, design, usability, and function. Okay, so a quick why, what, and how of user experience design. So the why studies the motivations and values and views of the user. What is the functionality and features that your website needs to offer? And the how has to do with the accessibility and the aesthetics of how it looks. So user experience is a multidisciplinary field, so it encompasses the entire user journey. UX designers come from a variety of backgrounds like visual design, programming, psychology, and interaction design. So the core areas of user experience are usability, a user's ability to use it easily and complete the desired task. useful content. So we talked about content in the last PowerPoint. The website should include enough information in easily digestible format so that the users can make their informed decisions. And then there's accessibility to meet accessibility standards, and credibility to provide security. Trust plays a huge part in the user experience. Okay, so again, the core areas are usability, content, accessibility, and credibility. Has to do with security. So these are all different aspects that we're going to study in this course. We took a look at content, and we're not going to cover too much of the content, but now we're aware of the role that content plays in web design. In this PowerPoint, we're going to study usability. In the future, we're also going to look at accessibility of web and security, which has to do with credibility. All right, so let's move on and talk more about why user experience is important in web design. Good user experience design on a website makes sure that users stay on your website and perform calls to action, that they take the actions that you want them to. So determining a seamless user journey where the visitor is provided with a very clean and smooth flow through the pages of the site through a specific process, allowing them very easily to complete a purchase, a sign up for a newsletter, or take the action that you want them to. Okay. Website usability has to do with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction in which specified users achieve specified goals in particular environments. So website usability refers to a website's ease of use. Ensuring that the web content is presented concisely and essential items are placed in appropriate places to facilitate smooth interaction. So there's a few things in this sentence that we need to pay attention to. We have to ensure that the web content is presented concisely. So the content that you want them to read is presented right there, then in a very short, clear way, so that they can get the information that they need right away. They don't have to read a large paragraph just to get that one piece of information that they need. So the information is presented to them very concisely. Essential items are placed in appropriate places, so they don't have to look all over the page for it. They see it where they need to see it in a very easy to find way, and this will give them a very smooth interaction with the interface. So the quality of the web user's experience when interacting with the website, the efficiency in which they can accomplish the task, and the satisfaction of the users completing the task all has to do with website usability. Okay, so let's look at the UX, user experience versus usability. The user experience is concerned with all the aspects of the user's experience when interacting with the product, service, environment, and facility. So the aim of the user experience is to make the user happy before they use your website, during when they're using your website, and after they have used your website. So it's about the whole experience. The user experience is concerned with the ways users perceive their interaction with that website. And this begins from before they get to your site and after they're done with your site. So the whole thing, the whole part of the service. The usability is more concerned with the effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction in which specified users achieve specified goals in very particular environments. So the aim of usability is to make that website easy to use. It relates to the ease in which users can achieve their goals while interacting with the site. So usability is only part of the whole user experience. So you can see this is all the user experience, and being usable is part of it. Other parts of user experience is it being useful, it being valuable, it being desirable, accessible, credible, and findable. So there are many different aspects to user experience, and usability is one of them. Okay, so how to make your website usable? You need to stick to standards. Stick to common design elements, layout, such as logo on top of the screen, contact information on the top right of the screen, horizontal menu navigation, usually at the top in the header, search bar in the header at the top, social media icons usually in the footer. So these are standards that has been sort of established, not so officially, but this is just the common way people, designers, do things on websites, and and that we as visitors or users of websites are used to. So you follow these standards that are already out there. No need to reinvent the wheel and shake things up unnecessarily. You need to create a visual hierarchy. So factors affecting visual hierarchy are size, color, contrast, negative space, and alignment. Visitors read from the top to the bottom and left to the right. When I talk about visual hierarchy, it means a hierarchy of the most important, the second most, the third most, the fourth most, and and so on. So most important things should be bigger in size, should have a brighter color, a different color, maybe should have contrast in other ways, maybe a lot of negative space around it, give it more room around it, more breathing space around it, and using the positioning, the alignment of it to make it pop more. Okay, so more important information should be higher up on the visual hierarchy, again using things like size, color, contrast, and negative space. Let's look at the rules of interface design. Okay, so there's 8 that we're going to look at here. We're going to strive for consistency, enable frequent users to use shortcuts, offer informative feedback, design dialogue to yield closure, make sure that everything comes to a close in the proper way so the user is left feeling accomplished, offer simple error handling, permit easy reversal of actions, and provide a sense of control for the user, and make sure that you're reducing short-term memory load so the user doesn't need to remember things. Okay, let's look at striving for consistency first. So consistent sequences of actions should be required in similar situations. Okay, so if a situation is similar to another, then the sequence of actions, what the user needs to do should be the same. All right, filling out a membership form should be the same as filling out a content form because they're filling out forms. So these are similar situations, they're filling out forms. So the sequences of actions should be the same. Don't shake things up just for the sake of shaking things up. Next, identical terminology should be used in prompts, menus, and help screens, and also consistent use of layout, color, capitalization of fonts, type of font, face use, things like that. It should all be consistent. The next one is enabling frequent users to use shortcuts. So recognize that different people are going to be using your site. Some are going to be novice, meaning new users. Some are going to be experts. And they may be experts because of the age range, disabilities, international variations, technological diversity, all affect the requirements that guides design, right? So they may be an expert because they are, the correct age range for that website, and maybe they're more familiar with that technology, or maybe they're just familiar with the content. Maybe they're a member that comes to your website very often. So if that's the case, then you want to provide shortcuts for them. For the novices, like people who are new to your site, you want to provide more explanations. And that's why on the FDU site we have the shortcuts section where a lot of the people that use the websites are students that have been using that website for years and years, and also maybe employees at FDU that use the website all the time, or instructors there. So they don't need to kind of go through all the explanation, all the loops to get to the content that they want. They right away want to go to Web Campus, or right away want to go to Web Advisor. They should be able to click easily on the site. They should be given shortcuts. However, there are new students or new employees or parents of students that are just kind of looking for information on the site and they haven't used that site very much. Then they need more explanations. But always keep in mind that there are going to be users that are common users, regular users, that are going to need those shortcuts, and you should provide those shortcuts for them. Next is to offer informative feedback. So for every user action, there should be an interface feedback. For frequent and minor actions, the response can be modest. For infrequent and major actions, the response should be more substantial. Next is designing dialogue to yield closure. So sequences of actions should be organized into groups with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the very end, you should give informative. So feedback that's informative, feedback that actually tells them something, that you are done, you have purchased it, thank you for your purchase, if you're buying something on the website. So some kind of feedback that says, yes, you are done, you have finished your task, okay? So this gives users a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, a sense of relief, and an indicator to prepare the user for the next group of actions if there's any, okay? And the example that I gave is the e-commerce websites move users from selecting products to checkout, and then a very clear confirmation at the end that yes, you have completed your transaction. That makes them feel relieved, knowing that they have accomplished their task, not leaving any room for vagueness. If you don't have that confirmation, then they're wondering, did I actually buy it? Should I check my credit card statement? Like, when do I get it? Okay, so you don't want to leave them with questions. You want them to have this confirmation and relief after their experience. Next is to offer simple error handling. So as much as possible, design the interface so that users cannot make serious errors. Okay, for example, gray out the menu items that are not supposed to be allowed. Okay, if a user makes an error, then the interface should offer simple, constructive, specific instructions for recovery. So for example, if they entered their postal code wrong, then they should the feedback should be, you entered the wrong, or this postal code is wrong, or is in the wrong format. It should be constructive. You should say it should be 6 digits or whatever, and then it should also be specific. You should say this is where you entered something wrong. Not, I've filled out forms where it just says, please fill out all required fields, but it doesn't actually show me where I had missed. So you need to be specific, you need to offer a solution, and it should be simple instructions. All right. Next is permitting easy reversal of actions. So as much as possible, actions should be reversible. Okay, they should be able to go back in time and space. This relieves users from anxiety, knowing that errors can be undone, that they're not going to do anything that's irreversible. And if there is something that's going to be irreversible, there should be, are you sure you want to do this kind of confirmation? Just like when you're buying something, it usually asks you for a confirmation. Okay, we're about to make this purchase. Are you sure? Confirm, right? So if you're not sure, you should be able to reverse. So the reversibility can be a single action, just one step back, or a complete group of actions. Maybe you just want to exit out of that purchase, exit out of that entire task that you're doing. Okay, next you want to provide your user with a sense of control, okay? Experienced users strongly desire the sense that they're in charge of the situation, in charge of the interface, that they're the ones driving, right? They don't want to be kind of led around and forced and pushed into spaces, and then they want to feel that the interface is responding to their needs, to their actions, okay? They don't want surprises or changes in familiar behavior, and that's where consistency is very important. They're really annoyed by tedious data entry sequences when they're forced to do something tedious, or difficulty in getting, necessary information when they're kind of pushed around the site, not being able to get the information that they want and not being able to get desired results. So make sure that you're offering these to them, give them the information they want, make their process easy, to give them the sense of control. And finally, reducing short-term memory load. So us as humans we have limited capacity for remembering things, for short-term memory. We don't need to remember more things than we already do in life. So don't make users remember information from one place and then have to use that information on another. Remember that for them when you can. Okay, so this means that cell phones should not require re-entry of phone numbers, website locations should remain visible, lengthy forms should be compromised of single display. Don't make them have to remember and guess information. All right, so going back to web usability, we have a usability checklist. Okay, so the usability checklist here, if you ever want to see if a website is usable, here's a quick cheat sheet, and it doesn't cover everything, but it's a good kind of test, a quick test to see if this website is meeting kind of like the basic usability needs. Does it have a site search function? Does it have a simple form entry? A homepage navigation best practices? Does it use pop-ups? Does it have clear link text? And does it have maximum 1 animation per page? Maximum, right? If it doesn't have animation, that's fine, but you don't want more than 1 animation. Is it easy to contact? And do the links open in the same window? Okay, so I'm just going to go over these and then we're done this PowerPoint. So the first one is a site search function. So visitors don't have full understanding of the content that lives on your site. They don't understand the site that like you do, that if you're working on a website for many months, then you have a really clear understanding of all the content that lives on the site. But visitors to your site, that is their first time there. They may only be there for about 5 minutes or even less. They don't understand how the whole content structure is set up. So you need to provide a search function for them. With the search, you're really saving them time. Maybe they just want to look up something very specific and they should be able to use a search function to find that on your website. Next is simple form entry. If you do have forms that they have to fill out, make sure that the instructions and fields are kept simple, be direct. Make the purpose of your form clear. Why are they filling out this form? What is this form for? Remove non-essential wording. Make it as few words as possible. Remove any steps that are not required. Think about every step. Is it absolutely necessary? Make your form visually appealing. Make it look nice and clean and spacious, and include error messages. If they have to enter the phone number a certain way without dashes, then let them know that. Next, homepage navigation best practices should be followed. Keep the menu consistent on every page of the site to avoid confusion and also to reinforce important pages. Give the menu prominence by placing it in an area that's easy to see, usually at the very top, right? Avoid including too many menu items. It could result in a reduced website responsiveness and cause items to compete with one another, meaning, it might work on a big screen on a desktop, but once, if you have too many items, once you're on your phone looking at this menu, it might be too cluttered or it kind of just looks strange because things are all bumped around. So, design for all devices, all screen sizes, and best thing is to kind of reduce how many menu items you have, okay? And use a logical strategy to list your menu items. This will influence the structure of your website and also affect search engine optimization. So think about it clearly how you're going to structure your navigation. And next, very short, but very important. No pop-ups. Pop-ups really interrupt your browsing session of the visitors and require instant feedback. There's nothing more annoying than pop-ups. I've never ever said yes to a thing that pops up in my face, and I've never been happy about it. It's the same as getting a phone call from a telemarketer. I've never been happy to get a phone call from a telemarketer. So I've never been happy to see a pop-up. They're just not welcome, so don't have pop-ups on your website. And provide a clear link text. So if you have links on your page, make sure that the link describes what is going to take you to, and make sure that it goes to the place that it promises to take you to. And never have a link that says click here or click to see more. If it's more information about INFO2105, make the word INFO2105 the link. So when they click on it, they will get to a page with more information about the class INFO2105. Do not make the link text click here to see more. Okay, so that's just kind of redundant. You want as few words as possible on your website. So if it's click here to see more about INFO2105, just make INFO2105 the link. Okay. Next is maximum one animation per page. So blinking and moving images makes it very difficult to focus on a single site element. Let your visitors see your actual content. Don't place animated ads alongside your articles. I've never been happy to see animated ads. Even when I have been happy to see them because they're kind of funny or cute, all it really does is distract me from why I'm on that website or web page. Okay, so it could, at the very best, it's just distracting. And usually it's just annoying. So don't have animations on your page unless you have a really good reason and that's what your website is actually about. And contact info, please make it easy. Visitors do want to get in touch with you, but can't find contact information, then they'll lose interest and they'll lose your trust. They're wondering, why are you hiding from them? Why can't I get a hold of you, is what they were thinking. Make sure that the contact information is easy to find. And make sure that links open in the same window. Visitors want to have control over everything that happens in their browser. If they want to open a link in a new window, they will. So they'll decide, let them decide, don't decide for them. Okay, and these are my sources for all the tips and helpful hints on, usability and checklists on how to create a website. I know that this is a lot of information for you. Think of all this as, very useful background knowledge. This is not a course in user interface design or user experience or usability, but it's a very important component of web design. So it would be incorrect to just only learn HTML and CSS and be able to code a website without having any knowledge of all those other fundamental, concepts about web design. So web design has many important aspects to it, especially in the planning phase where you have to, create the sitemap that has to do with the website content and, content architecture. When designing a website, you really have to think about the usability of the website. You really have to think about the visual design of the website. And only after you have considered the web content, you've considered the web usability, you've considered the visual design, only after you've considered all those things, then you can make a proper plan for a website. And then with that proper plan, then you can go into development where you use CSS and HTML to code a website. So although our course is mostly centered on the development, the HTML and the CSS component of creating a website, it is still very important to know the other aspects that exist alongside and prior to the stage where you create your code, HTML and CSS code. Okay, so again, going back to the web project lifecycle, you have the information gathering where you understand the needs of the website, the audience of your website. Then you go into the planning phase where you put together everything that you know about visual design and about content and about usability. Then you create that sitemap and wireframe. Then you take it into the design phase where you apply all the visual design concepts and ideas to come up with a mock-up that makes you ready to then create the HTML and CSS code, which is going to actually make the website functional. And then after that, you take it into testing, and you make sure that it's accessible. You're going to make it responsive to different devices. So as you can see, the HTML and CSS is one important part, just one part of the whole website design or website project lifecycle. Okay, it's just one part of it, and there are many parts that are just as important as the HTML and the CSS development. All right, so I just wanted to give you or remind you about that so that you understand why you're learning about, web content, why you're learning about visual design, why you're learning about usability. These are all very important things that should be understood by you as a website designer. Okay, there's more to a website than just the CSS and HTML.